Welcome back to the Everything is Black and White podcast. It's time for the latest episode of the Mulliner and Musgrove Show with me, Andrew Musgrove, and I'm joined by Sam Mulliner. It is the day of the second leg of the Carabao Cup semi-final, and I'm sure, like me, you're full of hope and optimism that Newcastle United will overturn that 2-goal deficit to Manchester City, and we'll all be booking our train tickets and hotels for Wembley, although the grimace that just came across Sam's face suggests otherwise. Sam, welcome back to the show. How are you doing? You well?
Good. I think it's very telling that this time last year, hotels and stuff were already booked by a lot of people. I think it's probably part of a wider point that sort of subconsciously the belief has gone a little bit with Newcastle at the moment. To start the show in a really depressing tone, sorry. But yeah, I think that was reflected in the atmosphere of the first leg of the semi-final, to be honest. But yeah, everyone had their, well, at least my circle of friends, we all had our hotels booked before the Brentford game in the quarterfinals, and we sort of did a couple of years before as well, and we did where we got done by Chelsea as well, but we got our money back that time. But yeah, I haven't heard of anyone that has had any hotels booked. So I don't know. Is that a telling sign, perhaps?
Yes, potentially. I think obviously on paper we were facing the best side in Europe, arguably, but that's not what they're performing like on the pitch. And as I said on the match preview, the biggest frustration heading into this second leg is that we did allow City to score 2 goals when they've not been at their best. And you probably didn't have a better chance to beat them than we did a few weeks ago. And since then, they've won a couple of games, but they're far from the City of old, which gives me a little bit of optimism. It is led by blind faith, but there's always a chance when it comes to Newcastle United and football. It is the day or a couple of days after the transfer window slammed shut and Newcastle United made 0 signings. Sam, your transfer window verdict, please.
Paceless. Inept. We were told the money was there to spend if we had to. We had to, really. So I don't know what it says. How must Eddie Howe be feeling? Because he hasn't been backed. Is that a sort of sign saying that, I don't know, that it generates a lot more questions than what it answers. We were told the money was there. We were told the ownership have ambitions to be number one. We've been told this, that, and the other, but nothing's happening. Everything's stalled and stagnated over the last 12, 18 months. Well, no, not over the last 12, 18 months. That's too far. Since the summer. Since the summer, and towards the tail end of last season, as we touched on last week, actually, towards the back end of the Premier League season, where we hobbled over the line, like we should have really kicked on in the summer after winning that trophy, like Chelsea did and Man City did. I know PSR and this, that, and the other, but again, with the chap who was smirking away in the stands at the previous game. Since he left, there's money to spend, and we're completely hamstrung. The areas of improvement we needed in the summer are still prominent now. We've not improved. We've gone backwards.
Well, Eddie Howe, of course, was asked about the January transfer window on Tuesday morning, his pre-match press conference before travelling down to the Etihad. I'll read you out some quotes, Sam, and then once I've done that, if you want to jump in and share your viewpoint on it. So Eddie Howe, on the decision of Newcastle United not to sign a player in January, said, is it a risk? Yes. I need to choose my words carefully here. We were left with no other option, really. Every decision we make has a long-term implication. There was no guarantee even signing someone with the funds we had would even help us short-term. It is what it is. We've been used to working in these conditions for a while. We've only been active in one of the last 4 or 5 windows. We are under restrictions, and we have decided to wait until the summer when it's easier to recruit and there's better value for money. We also had a very limited amount of money to use this window. We have a need in the short term defensively, but those options weren't there for us, so we can't sign players that don't exist. So sort of, Sam, a little bit of a mixed message. You can sense a little bit of frustration from Eddie Howe, but also he is looking at the bigger picture and the summer, although he's very aware and accepting of the short-term need for additions, especially in defence. But as he says there, in his opinion, in the opinion of the club, the players that they would want to come in short-term weren't there. So, as he says, he can't sign players that don't exist. And I guess when you are looking at the bigger picture, you don't want to sign someone who just fills a gap for 4 months or so. You do want someone who's going to be here, over the next 3 or 4 seasons. So that's also got to be taken into account in a January transfer window.
Yeah. I mean, we signed Trippier, Burn, Bruno, Gordon in January windows. So let's not get bogged down just because it's January. There's a lot of questions to be asked about the new sort of 2 power men in the club. Probably could do with Hopkinson coming out and having a word. Because the communication and the fans are the lifeblood, to use again their own phrases. An explanation would be nice. There's a lot of questions to be asked about the people above Eddie Howe, who performed miracles at time last season. Yes, I've been frustrated with Howe on numerous occasions. You know how much I despised our transfer business in the summer. And you can't then moan about PSR when you blow 55 plus on a 29 turning 30-year-old striker. When you spend 55 million on a winger who's not fit for purpose with the way we play, and then you sign a German forward and don't adapt to his style of play. You don't adapt to your new signings. You haven't adapted to Ramsey. You haven't adapted to. I mean, you can't really adapt to the way Elanga plays because he plays off the counter. We can't play off the counter. We're too good to play on the counter, especially against lower placed teams in the table. At home, we will come and try and low block. So there's responsibility that needs to be taken. I can understand because PSR is an absolute pain in the backside, but again, the transfer business in the summer has completely ruined us.
Well, Eddie Howe was asked about that as well. And he said he was asked if it was self-inflicted after the £250 million spend, the knock-on effect to the window just gone. And he said, yes, the summer we were preparing for a season like no other. No intention to recruit in January. Summer business was with a view to getting through to the next summer. And it obviously hasn't quite worked that way because we're sat here not only needing cover for defence, but also looking for that little bit of an extra spark going forward as well. But, still time for those players to click. We don't need to go over old ground. Our viewers and listeners know exactly how we both feel on those that came in the summer. But it's interesting that you asked there for an explanation from the powers that be, from David Hopkinson, maybe Ross Wilson. But do they need to come out and explain why there was no signings in the January transfer window? I mean, is that not kind of showing your hand? If you come out and you say, we had £30 million to spend, but the right players weren't there, we are keeping everything for the summer, then do you not just let everyone know your kind of plan for the summer? And everyone automatically assumes that you've got a lot of money to spend come the summer. I get the need for communication. That's all we actually really wanted. That was kind of the first thing, wasn't it, on the list when the owners took over from Mike Ashley, and we got that. But I often hear these calls for transparency and a lot of it when it comes to transfers, and I don't necessarily think it is the right approach every single time. I got it after 3 or 4 windows without spend, but after one window after the summer, I mean, is it really necessary? Maybe it is best just to keep it quiet and in-house and then hit the summer without letting your rivals know exactly what you've got to do.
Yes, I fully understand your point on that sense, but there is ways and means of doing it where you could come out and say, well, PAF is still very committed to the cause. We're still backing Eddie Howe, because some people might suggest, well, they've not backed Howe. Are they losing faith? If he doesn't get us, maybe they're already looking at a change for the summer. Because that in the summer, I'm not saying Newcastle will be involved in this, but there will be a big manager turnover. because after the World Cup, you've got the likes of Ancelotti, Nagelsmann, Tuchel, who are all sort of available. You could put Pochettino in that bracket as well. So there could be a big turnover of managers post World Cup. So with them not backing their manager in the January window and not coming out and saying anything, that's going to leave question marks.
But if they came out and said, "Oh, we're backing Eddie Howe," does that not kind of push you towards a path that Newcastle United aren't necessarily on? It's like the kiss of death in many ways. I always think when an ownership has to come out and say we're backing the manager, because I think although there's been
Do you think this season's going well?
no, I don't. But I also don't think we're at the point where they have to be on record, whether it be Dave Hopkinson or someone from the Public Investment Fund, and say, "Oh, we're backing Eddie Howe," because I always think when a ownership does that, that only leads one way. That only goes down one
Fans
path.
are the lifeblood of the club. Those are not my words. And at the moment, we have had more Adidas launches than away wins this season in the Premier League.
No, I get that, but do you need to hear David Hopkinson or Ross Wilson or the chairman come out and say we're
After
backing
a
Eddie Howe?
window where we're crying out for reinforcements, it wouldn't go amiss.
Interesting. Let us know in the comments whether you want to hear from the top brass and whether the message you want to hear is that they are indeed backing Eddie Howe. I mean, I don't think it's necessary at that moment, at this moment in time. I think it's well known behind the scenes that Eddie Howe has got their full support and there's an understanding of how things have gone. So, I mean, I wouldn't be a fan of them coming out and saying that because I just don't think it's necessary. But interesting that is Sam's viewpoint. We've got a few questions sent in, Sam, by our viewers and listeners. So thank you for those who got in touch. One of the questions is, would you take anyone who did move this January? And there's a few names that have been put forward. Conor Gallagher joined Tottenham and got injured straight away. Strand Larson went to Crystal Palace. Brennan Johnson went to Crystal Palace. Oscar Bob went to Fulham.
Yes, please.
So, and obviously there'll be other names, and if I've missed anyone out, do let me know, Sam. But Conor Gallagher,
Semenya Gay.
yeah, but considering who they've gone to, I have purposely missed them out. Conor Gallagher,
no.
Strand Larson,
no.
Brennan Johnson.
Mateta?
Well, that is funny, isn't it? The fact they spent all that money in them, Mateta didn't end up leaving.
And they were letting him go for cheaper than what they paid for Strand Larson. I find that, I don't know, is it just me? I find that very bizarre.
I think there's an issue maybe with some part of him. I think the knee's an issue. I think it might be a Demba Ba kind of situation. I read something that he had an initial medical, then he was going for more medical tests.
Right.
So that's just what I read. I don't know what the crack is. I mean, look, yeah, Mateta's a better striker.
I mean, in the summer, if you'd have said Mateta or Wissa.
You see, that's interesting, though, because, obviously people turn their noses a bit at Wissa, but actually, if you look at Mateta's record, it's only really the last couple of years that he's hit the ground running. He's not too different from Wissa in terms of when they actually found their form, and I think he's hit 8 goals this season or something like that, so he's not exactly rediscovered it from the season before.
Strand Larson's had 1 goal.
Oh, look, hey, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't be able to sign Strand Larson in this window, especially after 48 million.
You've changed your tune?
I changed my tune at the start of the window. We spoke about it. I said, let's not go after Strand Larson again. No, thank you. I mean, I wish the guy well. I hope he does all right at Palace and rediscovers his touch. But yeah, it's a lot of money.
Look, I'm not advocating signing Mateta because, like you say, if there is issues there, I mean, he's 28 himself. All jokes aside, I don't know. I just thought it was funny that Larson was going for a lot more than what they were willing to sell Mateta for. Strikers are always tricky because there's not that many. I mean, look, Hendrick, we should have been all over it, and he scored 3 goals in 2 games for Lyon. And then I saw a couple of comments when I mentioned him the other week that we should stay in our lane. He's gone to freaking Lyon. Sorry, does that mean we should give Bruno back to Lyon because we need to stay in our lane? Christmas Day. Honestly, you think Hendrick wouldn't want to come play in the Premier League at 19 years of age, play off the last man, explosive pace, so much like who we've just lost? We should have been all over it, even if it was just a loan to see us through to the end of the season, and then we could regather in the summer and sort it out. But that's what I mean. Paceless. Should have been all over stuff like that. The deals were out there, if you're shrewd enough, but we're not. We're miles off it. Like even the late deal with the midfielder from Rands. I mean, we've shown our hand with that now. So I fully expect him to go to Chelsea in the summer, because that seems to be what happens. Chelsea's recruitment is unbelievable. You look at these wonder kids all around the globe, and you think, oh, he's going to be great, and there's a pre-contract agreement in place for Chelsea. I mean, yes, the thing with Strasbourg probably needs looking into a little bit, but recruitment-wise, Chelsea have got it so right.
Well, let us know in the comments your thoughts on the players who did move in January and whether you would take any of them at Newcastle United. We have a question from David, who asks, if you were offered full refunds for the group of players, and it has to be all 6 players or nothing, who we bought in the summer, would you take that deal?
Yeah.
As simple as that.
Yeah, I would. It's only really Voltemada that I'm happy with. There was sort of green shoots of revival for a little bit from Ramsey. Chow started well. If Cher was fit, I'd probably be taking him out of the team, because there, like I said in the summer, there's errors in his defensive game. He's good on the ball, makes good interceptions here, there, and everywhere, but defensively he can be poor, and he was poor against Liverpool. He was appalling against Leeds. He's made a few mistakes, costly mistakes. So I'm not writing him off, because, as I say, he started magnificently. But if we had the benefit of maybe just taking him out the firing line for a game or two, that would probably do him good, because he needs to be taken out the firing line before it becomes an issue.
And obviously, at this moment in time, Eddie Howe hasn't got the options to take him out of the team, which is an issue. Look, that's an interesting.
He could, if he wants to play Burn and Botman together, but it's not ideal.
Yeah. Interesting question there, though, from Davey. Obviously,
would you?
Well, it's difficult because
we signed your man.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned earlier in the show about adapting, because I think if Newcastle adapted to certain styles, then certain players would indeed be more worthy of the price tag that they paid. Mm-hmm. However, knowing the manager, knowing his style, that's not going to happen. I mean, it's a difficult question, because it depends where you then go and spend the money, doesn't it? I mean, there's lots of offshoot questions about that initial question. I mean, look, yeah, you probably would do. I don't think any of them really set the world alight. We've seen it in glimpses. Like you say, Chow started well, Waldemar started well, but they have tailed off.
I don't see the annoyance with Voltemada. I think he's great. I think he's brilliant.
I think he's great, and I'm more concerned from. I'm not at all, criticizing him or angry with him or disappointed him. I'm concerned. That is my feeling at the moment, because he's a young man. You would
like to see him drop into a 10 and adapt?
Well, 100%. I mean, I on the match preview suggested that would be my way to go against City in the cup. You need to go and win the game. I feel Newcastle are more dangerous in that formation, and I can
only remember once that we've sort of done that, and we dropped the Anfield Rat into the 10 behind Wilson at Brentford away, and it worked a treat. But that's the only time I can really remember us doing that.
Yeah, and that's the problem. We haven't done it enough for the players to get used to it. But I do feel Wissam Valdemar working as a centre forward in a number 10 is probably the best way to see them at their best. It won't happen against City. I don't think it'll happen in the near future.
These are the run of games as well now, that Elanga should come to the fore, because we can play on the counter. But I think it's a write-off, to be honest. I think it's such a poor piece of business, and Forest have had our pants down twice, courtesy of of the chap who's now employed by us. But yeah, I would be. I think that whole summer was such a mess. You can point the finger at the guy who left, but like we knew Wilson was going, and we didn't replace him until the last minute of the transfer window. Yes, I know we had setbacks with going up against teams who can offer higher wages, who just sign players for the sake of signing players, but there's plenty of alternatives out there.
Well, the next question comes from Davey, and he says, "Are you still serious about giving Kieran Trippier a new deal?" Referring to your point last week about giving him a new contract and keeping him on. He didn't have the best of games after that episode went out. Davey says, "Have you changed your mind?"
No.
Simple as that. Once again, short.
No, I haven't, because when I said that he wouldn't be playing first team week in week out, which unfortunately at the moment he has to do, because Miley's had a setback. Liveramento's still 6 weeks away. In the same episode, I said we need to go in for Wesley Franca from Roma. So yeah, I get it. I mean, Trippier probably could do with being hooked after an hour, to be honest. But Howe isn't. Well, again, the word is paceless when it comes to making changes. He's not. He's too reactive instead of proactive at the moment. So yeah, I would still be giving Trippier another year. But again, it was never to be a first choice player. It was more sort of his off the pitch influence and his knowledge, and he's an inspirational character on the pitch, and we see him coaching at the sides when he's on the bench. That's more so, and he can still do a job here every in and out of the side. What do I want him to see him play 4 matches in 10 days, 3 matches in 10 days, whatever? No, 4 matches in 10 days. No, of course not. But that's the situation we're in at the moment.
Oliver asks, if we assume the average age of the squad needs to come down, who does Sam buy for the first 11 goalkeeper, defensive midfielder, attacking midfielder, and a young backup striker? Doesn't want any Premier League names mentioned. You're not allowed to mention Kubu or Kobel. He wants new names.
New names. Well, I don't know about new, but I can certainly do different. Right, let's start with goalkeeper then. So Restes from Toulouse. He's 20. Really good French keeper, and he's been in the news over the past week or so. But again, he was one that I pinpointed in the summer. Trubin from Benfica got that goal for them against Real Madrid, the header in the dying embers to see them through for qualification. He's still only 24, which for a goalkeeper is plenty young enough. Trubin, I've been a big fan for the last 12, 18 months. Ukrainian international. Yeah, I think you never really know what the market's like at the minute, but you could argue that he'd be cheaper than Restes, because half the time now you're paying for the potential. So yeah, Trubin, I like a lot, and obviously we saw him again for ourselves against Benfica in the Champions League. But yeah, Restes is a good one to keep an eye on. He's got it tough in terms of international appearances, because Magnon's obviously got that pretty nailed down. Chevalier's struggling a little bit with PSG, but I don't know why, because their keeper who played against us looked ropey as out, didn't he? And Chevalier, I mean, I wouldn't be losing faith with him in a hurry. But yeah, Restes has got it all to do, but he's certainly got the potential to do it. Big frame. But yeah, Restes or Trubin for goalkeeper. What was the next one?
Defensive midfielder.
Do we need a defensive midfielder?
We need a defensive midfielder.
I think okay. Lewis Miley. He looks really good. I've heard some good things about him. Defensive midfielders is tricky. I don't know whether you'd. I'm going to cheat a little bit. So the one I mentioned in this. Do you remember when we discussed centre mids fleetingly in the summer? And I gave a cheeky mention to one in the Premier League. Can you remember who it was?
It certainly wasn't Tyler Adams.
No, it was not. It was Bergval.
Oh yes, Spurs man.
I think Spurs are fantastic at ruining players. Because I tell you what, in terms of young potential striker, I'm trying to get Tell as far away from Spurs as possible. He had the world at his feet before he went there. My word. And I worry because they've been linked with Akalush as well. I mean, Spurs just look an absolute career ruiner for good young players at the moment. A lad from, I don't know, I'm cheating a little bit because I'm not giving any out and out defensive midfielders. I still think Miley can do the job there. But do you remember when we played Bilbao? They have a young, I think he's about 21, 22 years old, centre mid, who looked all right in a relatively poor Bilbao team, who did cause us problems in parts. But I'm going to butcher his name because I can't pronounce it. But it was Mikel Jerezagar. Gizar, yeah, I can't. I never did GCSE Spanish, so French names I'm all right with, but Spanish names I will butcher. He's maybe one to keep an eye on. Yeah, I mean, I mentioned Wesley at right back, who can also play left back too. I mean, Lewis Hall's new contract is becoming a must, because there's going to be teams sniffing around him now as well, because he has been head and shoulders above that entire back line. Yeah, he's been phenomenal, hasn't he? Really. What was the other positions?
An attacking midfielder and a young backup striker.
Young backup striker Karim Konate for Salzburg. Again, mentioned him in the summer. He scored against Villa in the Europa League last week. Had his ACL issues, but he's just starting to come back now. So that him scoring in the Europa League was positive. It depends how sort of ambitious you want to go, really. Because you can go, oh, let's get Yildiz from Juventus or something like that, who will cost an absolute fortune, but he can play anywhere along that forward line, sort of off a nine. He's only 20 odd still, so, but he's going to cost a ridiculous fee. So it depends how ambitious you want to go. Akalush from Monaco would probably have got a bit more attention had we have drawn them in the Champions League. But of course, we've got carrier bag. So are you going to Baku? Have Reach PLC signed that one off? Got your
Takes about
flight?
3 days to get there, doesn't it? No, not for me. And I'll be
No,
honest,
it doesn't. It doesn't. It doesn't take 3 days to get, isn't it? Just over 6 hours of direct flight from Heathrow. I think I saw. I did look into it.
no, I'll have bigger things to be focused on by the time that game comes around. But some interesting names. I mean, I would still be looking at Promise David from the Belgian Pro League. He's got 11 goals this season already, top scorer.
Yeah.
Thereabouts last season.
I've got a couple of names to keep an eye on. I'm not saying they're going to turn into, Super Jesus or anyone like that, but like ones that are sort of got promise. Young striker at Lecce, who's just started being introduced into the team, and Lecce have quite a good record at the moment of bringing on youth players. Dorgu, who was on my list, but before he went to Man United, and Francesco. Again, I'm butchering names here. Sonada, or it's just essentially spelled Canada. But yeah, him. Duranville at Dortmund, who's not really getting enough minutes. He's a winger, but I think he's about 18, 19. He's been there a couple of years now. but he hasn't managed to kind of barge his way into the first team picture yet. I thought he would with Bino Gittins going to Chelsea, but there is promise there. Assane Diallo, who is a Senegalese winger, plays for Como, your new favourite Italian team. Really like him because he can cross a football. Who'd have thought it? Who'd have thought it? And he's good with both feet. He's explosive. Yeah, he is. He's one to keep an eye on. I like him. Assane Diallo. And another one as well. Again, he's probably going to end up at Chelsea because he plays for Strasbourg. So, but he's got 11 goals in Ligue 1 so far this season. Joaquin Panicelli, Argentinian striker. That could be one to maybe look at. And I've got a whole host of centre halves as well. Finn Jeltsch from Stuttgart, Scalvini we mentioned in the summer, Diamande we mentioned in the summer. Had Botman have gone, I would have put forward Castello Lacaba from Leipzig to maybe replace him because he's left-sided. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much extends my list because I did see that question on Twitter, so I got the names ready.
Well, there we go. Thank you to everyone who has sent in questions. We hope you've enjoyed this Q&A with Sam Mulner. Big thanks to NordVPN for sponsoring the show. Do click the link in the podcast description box for a discount offer on your NordVPN plan. No risk with a 30-day money-back guarantee. One subscription can be used across 10 devices. Please make sure you click on that and sign up and support the podcast while keeping yourself safe online. Do get into the comments and let us know your thoughts on anything that Sam or I have discussed today. He is hoping for 3 points, not 3 points. He's hoping for a win this evening. And it will have to be by 3 goals to get Newcastle United through to the Wembley final. We live in hope. Hope you guys have enjoyed the show, and we'll catch you guys very soon.